All right, let's get to it. Hey, Perry Jeffries here, president of Diamond Equity Advisors. Super excited to share this super important information here with you concerning the PPP loan and actually other components of the CARES Act. So we'll give a couple moments just for a few people to join, but if you know me and you ever been on any of my webinars, I like to start right on time. I am the child of a former Vietnam vet. We don't do things late in our household. That's just how we roll. So if you're not with us now, you'll be able to catch the recording here shortly. So nonetheless, we just want to thank you guys for joining me. You are in the right place if you signed up for the Understanding the PPP loan and the impact it has on your finances and retirement plans. So understanding the qualifying expenses, how to stay compliant, i.e. out of jail, how to document properly, and also to get the maximize forgiveness on the loan. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it, y'all. All right, cool. So I've done this presentation for my clients already as a private client webinar, and then I wanted to open this up to the public just because I saw a huge need for understanding around all of these moving parts that are going on because of the pandemic. So we have so many different names out there and things we got to keep track of. We got the EIDL, we got the PPP, we got the PUA, we got the NUA. I mean, we got 401k. There are so many moving parts here, y'all, that it's just comes a point in time that you gotta, try to understand this stuff. But unfortunately, it's super confusing even for somebody like myself who's been in the industry for some time. So what I want to do was share this information with you and cover not only the PPP, but also to some of the other components of the CARES Act, because I believe that's where a lot of the confusion is coming in, is that people are mixing up the different types of loans and interchanging them with how they function. So what I'm going to do is just give you a good synopsis of those different loans and some of the other different provisions that have been rolled out with the CARES Act. And that way you can move forward making good decisions with solid information. So let's jump into it. All right, so the CARES Act, super confusing. So this was a knee-jerk reaction from the government to help curb some of the pain that we were feeling in the economy because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And because it was a knee-jerk reaction, if you will, the legislation has been changing on this thing, not monthly, not weekly, but almost daily. So if you're not staying in tune with this, you may miss it. So what you may have read 30, 60 days ago doesn't apply today. So that's why it's just an ongoing piece that's going, that you have to deal with. So it can be super confusing because there are so many moving parts to it, and I totally get it. All right, so why exactly is it so confusing? Because this legislation was put together by lawyers, politicians, and bankers. That is the recipe for confusion. There's many a times you may get if you ever seen a loan document, you have all of that legalese. Are you reading every line of that? Most people don't. Some people do, but the majority of people just, hey, where do I need to sign? And unfortunately, that's how these loans have been put together. They've made it pretty easy to get financing. And that's where the challenge comes into play, is that though the financing was easy to get, you need to understand the rules of engagement so you don't put yourself in harm's way. So with all that being said, it's just been a plethora of information. So you got the PPP, but then you got the EIDL loan, or then you have the EIDL advance, which is, they say is a grant, but it's really an advance, like all these different moving parts to it. So that's why we put this on here for you. So our goal with this webinar is to take some of the confusion, if not all of the confusion, out of what's going on. All right, so we're going to discuss this in layman's terms. So as a disclaimer, we're not here to give advice. We can only advise our clients. That's just a regulation because of the industry that we're in, but we are here to provide clarity. And at the end, we'll also try to answer some questions as well. So again, not here to give advice, but to add clarity, which is really odd because I've made some phone calls to the SBA myself, and their position is that they cannot provide any guidance, which I'm like scratching my head, like how in the world do you roll out all of these different loan programs, but you can't advise people? And their position is like, hey, You have the same information that we have. Hopefully you can figure it out and make the right decision, which is truly, truly scary. And I believe it's going to really put us in a bad position moving forward, in probably the next 12, 18, or 24 months, because the onus has been put on you as the entrepreneur to try to understand all of this legalese. So my goal is to put these in layman's terms so you can understand them. So before we get started and we go into this discussion here, I want to share a little bit about myself. I promise you this is not to brag in any way, shape, or form, because this is not about me, it's about you. But I do believe that when you're receiving a message, that you need to know who the messenger is. Understanding the messenger's background is sometimes just as important as understanding the message. So who I am, who's this Perry Jeffries guy? I'm known throughout the market as an entrepreneur CFO. Some call me the profitologist. Who I am is just a regular dude who figures some things out. So 17 years experience in the financial service industry, managing clients' assets. I've held positions with 3 Fortune 500 companies. I've held a Series 7 stockbroker's license, a Series 66 investment advisory license, life, health, and annuity licenses. So would you call me a fully licensed advisor? Some designations that I have a CRPC, a Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor designation through the College of Financial Planning. By their standard, I'm an expert when it comes to asset management, investing, retirement planning for individuals. I also have a CPFA, that's a Certified Plan Fiduciary Advisor designation. Under that designation, I'm an expert when it comes to retirement planning for companies. So 401ks, pension plans, 403bs, things of that nature. Something I'm really proud to say is that I'm also a certified profit first professional. So at the time of this recording, I am the only certified profit first professional on the globe who is also a fully licensed financial advisor, because most of your profit first professionals are accountants, bookkeepers, and CPAs. But because we work with so many entrepreneurs who need so much help, we sought to get that certification. I've had the opportunity to work with Damon John, our favorite Shark Tank, our favorite shark off of Shark Tank, founder of FUBU. Had the opportunity to be an ambassador with his Rise and Grind book that was rolled out several years ago. In addition, I'm a John Maxwell certified speaker and coach. So I've traveled around the country giving presentations on leadership. One quote from John is, "Everything rises and falls on leadership." I hold that true to my heart. And you may have seen us on ABC or Fox 21. Last year, we had a standing segment on Fox, weekly segment on Fox 28 called Financially Fit Fridays with Perry. I've managed $80 million in clients' assets. And more importantly, I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and small business owners across the country, now across the globe, because we actually have a client in Australia now. So I share my background just so you understand that I'm coming from a position of expertise, but my goal is not to impress you or talk over your head. It's to try to share this information with you in a way that you can digest and understand so you can move forward and make the best of the situation that we're in right now. All right. So before we get into the PPP, let's first talk about the EIDL loan. We call it EIDL for short, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan in Advance. So there's a couple loans floating out there. So you got PPP and you got the EIDL. A lot of people been confusing the two with each other. So we're going to make sure that we get crystal clear on what they are. So the purpose of the EIDL loan is a program to extend low interest credit to small businesses that are impacted by disasters via the SBA. So the SBA, Small Business Administration, is issuing a low interest credit. So it's a loan, okay? So this is truly a loan. And how it works is like so. Purpose of the loan. The proceeds of the EIDL are used to meet working capital needs. So i.e., this is working capital, okay? The EIDL may be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other operating expenses. All right. Now, that cannot be paid, because of the disaster's impact. So if the pandemic impacted you, you can use these dollars to cover some of those operating expenses. Now, what the proceeds cannot be used for is expanding business operations, paying cash dividends or bonuses, or dispersing payments to officers and owners. So let's kind of look at this for a second. If you apply And I would highly recommend that you do apply, because I know of at least $100,000 that's been funded here over the past 40 hours. The past 48 hours. So I highly recommend that you apply, because they open up the EIDL portal back up for small business owners. So these funds are available right now. With that being said, this is working capital. This is a loan. Okay. And it functions in the true sense of the loan. But what you can and cannot use the dollars for is pay attention. So you can use this for payroll, but you can't use it as, cash dividends or bonuses to officers or owners, unless those payments are directly related to the performance of the services of the business. So you got to understand and kind of dive into that language a little bit. If you have some questions over that, any questions you have, just put them in the chat. But this is truly a working capital loan. Now, I can give my personal opinion on this loan. I like this loan because it's kind of clean and easy to understand, right? When things are easy to understand, it usually means we can make better decisions. But let's put a pause there and move forward. Now, the way the loan is currently set up, the loan is a loan at a 3.75%, which is a phenomenal interest rate on a 30-year payment plan. Now, this is for for-profit businesses. And then if you're a nonprofit, you possibly can get approved for a 30-year loan at a 2.75% interest rate. So let's put a pin in right there and just call it what it is. This is a pretty good loan, working capital. Now, understand something. You want to look at the entire schedule of how much you're going to pay over 30 years, because it's similar to a mortgage, if you will, right? So, typically if you have a $100,000 mortgage at, that 4, 5, 6% interest rate over 30 years on that 100,000, you're going to pay close to 250 to 300,000. So understand, it is still a loan. This is not free money. Okay. The EIDL will not be forgiven by the SBA. So this loan is not going to go away. Let that resonate for a second. Now, it's going to have loans with a principal balance and things of that nature. You're going to have principal and interest payments, right? Now, here's the deal. Loans with a principal balance in excess of $25K must be secured by some form of collateral. Now, I'm going to let you into my world and be 100% transparent with you, because I believe that's how people learn. We got to be honest with each other and call it what it is. I was just recently approved for this loan. And when I got the email saying, hey, we're revisiting your loan, are you still interested in it? I hit a button. It's like, yeah, I'm still interested in it. Then I got another email saying, hey, this is your approved amount. Click this button. I clicked that button. And then I got an email from the SBA saying, hey, just got a couple questions about your business. Can you send us a tax return? Yeah, here you go. Boom. Within, 12 hours, I was approved for a substantial amount of money. And I'm like, whoa, right? So I'm thinking to myself, okay, these are pretty good, terms and whatnot. Then I got the loan document, because you still have to sign a loan document, and they send it to you via DocuSign. This is part of my loan document. So this is not what I think happened. This is real time, real deal, what's happening right now. I read it and I said, so let me read it to you guys. I know everybody can read, but in small print, so I'll walk you through it. For loan amounts greater than $25,000, borrower hereby grants the SBA, the secured party hereunder, a continuing security interest in and to any and all collateral. So by filling out this, signing this loan application, which is a DocuSign. So it's just like, hey, sign here, sign here, sign here. Okay, you're good to go. If you don't pay attention to this fine print, it can come back and bite you in the butt. So check this out. Now, what's collateral? Because if your loan is above $25,000, you automatically got in bid with the SBA. So collateral includes the following property that the borrower now owns or shall acquire. So if you own property now and you buy some property later, that is now collateral to the SBA, or create immediately upon the acquisition or creation thereof. All tangible and intangible personal property, including but not limited to A, inventory, B, equipment, C, instruments, including promissory notes, D, chattel paper, including tangible chattel paper and electronic chattel paper, documents, letter of credit rights, accounts, including healthcare, insurance receivables, and credit card receivables, deposit accounts, commercial tort claims, General intangibles, including payment, tangibles, and software, as extracted in collateral as such terms. So let this resonate for a second. When you sign this loan, you are automatically using all of your assets for the most part as collateral. So this is not free money to be played around with. If you do not fulfill your obligation to the SBA, you have pretty much given them free range over your checking accounts, your homes, your vehicles, your equipment, your business. So I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying you know what you're signing and know what you're signing up for. Now, if you treat the loan the way it's supposed to be treated, you're good to go. But understand, this is not free money. The SBA was smart when they put this together. They're holding everybody accountable. If you were below 25,000, you don't have to worry about it. But if you got a loan above 25,000, understanding that you are in a full-blown relationship with the SBA. Again, this is directly off of my loan document. Borrower will use the proceeds of this loan solely, listen to this, as working capital to alleviate economic injury caused by disaster occurring in the month of January 31st, 2020, and continuing thereafter. So you're supposed to use these funds for the business. This is not a vacation fund. This is not a consolidation fund. These dollars are supposed to be used for the business. And again, for those individuals who are not tracking their numbers, which I know is 90% of small business owners, this other section, which is really important, requirements for use of loan proceeds. Borrower will obtain and itemize receipts, paid invoices, or canceled checks, and contracts for all loan funds spent, and retain these receipts for 3 years from the date of the final disbursement. So when you get these funds, this is not a free fall to go paying stuff off because you felt the need to go pay it off or you thought it was a good idea. Because you have to show a paper trail and keep that paper trail for at least 3 years from the time of receiving that money. So if you receive the money today, the 3-year clock starts where they want to see those that paper trail. And prior to each subsequent disbursement and whenever requested by the SBA, borrower will submit to SBA such itemization together with copies of the receipts. So at any point in time, the SBA can say, hey, we gave you that money. We don't know what you spent it on. You better have those receipts, y'all. You better have a way to track that. You better have your business and you better have your financial system in order. If you do not have a financial system now, which I know the majority of us don't, you better get one in place because they are not playing around. They already told you that all of your assets dang near are collateral. And at any point in time, SBA can circle back to you on that money and say, hey, we want to see how you spent those dollars. Let that sink in and resonate. So again, not to scare you, because if you're using the money the right way, there's no issue. But for those who are not using the money the right way, you are putting your business and your livelihood at risk. Moving right along. So now into what you signed up for, the PPP. I have to go through the EIDL first just so you could understand the PPP. So the PPP, again, was a program that came out with the CARES Act, right? The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. This also is an SBA loan. So a lot of folks are, again, mixing these two up. Oh, it's an SBA loan. Well, which one are you getting? Is this the economic injury, you know what I'm saying, a disaster loan? Or is it the PPP? They're not the same. The PPP loan has many more requirements of you as the entrepreneur, as a small business owner. And here they are. So it's SBA loan, and the loan helps the businesses keep the workforce employed during the COVID-19 crisis. So again, this is not a debt consolidation loan. This is not, let me go pay off my credit cards. This is not, no, let me go pay down my mortgage. This loan is to keep your workforce employed during the crisis. That's why it's called a payroll protection program and not a debt consolidation loan or a vacation fund, okay? So, you know, again, let's talk about it. So kind of here's some of the parameters of the loan. The loan amount is based on your average monthly payroll cost for 2019. So you can receive up to 2.5 times that amount to help you cover 8 weeks payroll. All right. Now, it's a little different if you're self-employed, kind of like myself, and you don't have a traditional payroll. Like I have, my team are all contractors. I 1099 all of my team. But for individuals who have payroll, they're going to look at, okay, what's your average payroll? And then they're going to take that monthly number and multiply it by 2.5. And then that's how much loan you may get approved for. Now, if you're kind of like myself and you don't have a traditional payroll, then they're actually looking at your tax return. Guess what? If you don't have a tax return to produce, then that's a problem. So they're going to be looking at your tax return because they're going to look at your business tax return, folks, and see what your profit was. Then they're going to take that number and they're going to then divide that by 12 and then multiply that number by 2.5. So your profit then becomes the payroll amount that they look at, right? So guess what? If you're showing zero profit, because you're playing that game where you're trying to reduce your taxable income and your business shows zero profit, you get zero loan. Okay. So you have to look profitable on paper. That's for a whole nother discussion. But again, moving forward here. So the funds from the PPP can be used for the following purposes: payroll. So salary, wage, vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, health benefits. Y'all pay attention to that. So salary, wage, vacation leave, parental, family, medical, or sick leave. Pay attention to that. And health benefits. Mortgage interest, as long as the mortgage was signed before February 15th, 2020. So you can't go get a mortgage now. I see a lot of people doing that now, like, oh, I need to start a business now so I can get this money. That's not the way this works. Okay. You have to have already had a business before the pandemic hit. You're not going to get money from the government because you decided to start a business. That's not how that game is played. Rent, as long as the lease agreement was in effect before February 15th, 2020. Again, did you have this in place before the pandemic hit? Utilities, as long as the service began before February 15th, 2020. So you can't go set some stuff up here in July and think you're going to get PPP money. So stop playing those games. I see people trying to do that as well. But this is what it's telling you can use the money for. Now, if the money is not used for these things, or you don't meet the certain criteria, this loan becomes a true loan. The goal is to try to get the loan forgiven. So there are some things you have to do to get the loan forgiven. But I want to make sure we kind of walk through this. So the funds from the PPP can use, so we kind of went through that here. I just want to read. Now, this is actually off the loan application. So, I'm not just pulling stuff out the air. With respect to the purpose of the loan, payroll costs consist of compensation to employees whose principal place of residence is in the U.S. in the form of salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation, cash tips, or the equivalent, or in the absence of such records, or reasonable good faith employee estimate, of such tips, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, payment for the provision of employee benefits consisting of group health care coverages, including insurance premiums and retirement. We'll come back to that here in a second. And payment of state and local taxes success on compensation of employees. Okay, so this is on the loan. So some folks have signed the loan paperwork, and still have not used these dollars for this reason. You are out of compliance, and if the SBA decides to audit you for whatever reason, you may be facing jail time or fine. So if you've done this, you need to fix this. Okay, let's keep it moving. This is what you have agreed to if you received a PPP. If you didn't read this line by line when you sign it, this is the application. I further certify that the information provided in this application and the information provided in all supporting documents and forms is true and accurate in all material respects. I understand that knowingly making false statements to obtain a guaranteed loan from the SBA is punishable under law, including under, that tax code, by imprisonment of not more than 5 years and or a fine up to $250,000. Under this other law right here, by imprisonment of no more than 2 years and or a fine of not more than $5,000. And if submitted to federally insured institution, you could be looking at imprisonment of not more than 30 days and or a fine not more than $1 million. They're not playing around with this money, y'all. It's great money if you use it for the right reasons. Okay. So again, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to just put things in layman's terms so you can understand them. These dollars are supposed to be used for this. They gave you the parameters. Now, this is what we found out is that there are some parameters in there that some people are missing, and that's where the opportunity lies in the legalese. I'm gonna show that to you here in a second. So let's talk about the program. So you got 24 weeks of coverage. Eligible expenses are those that incurred over 24 weeks, starting from the day the first payment was made by your lender. So as soon as you get the money, you have a 24-week clock. It starts immediately. As soon as funds hit, you got 24 weeks to use this money the right way. Now it's a 60-40 rule. So 60-40 rule. So prior to this, and we'll get to it here in a second, when they first wrote this out, it was a very dicey setup, because it's like 75% of this has to be used towards payroll, 25% can be used for other things, you know what I'm saying, for the business. But companies, and we're still close to like restaurants, they couldn't pay anybody because nobody could work. So they's like, man, this is like getting really, really dicey. And a lot of people start walking away from the loans or giving the loans back because of these criteria. So they eased them a little bit through the Flexibility Act. So now it's a 60-40. So at least 60% of your loan must be used for payroll costs. Payroll costs. Payroll costs. Payments to independent contractors cannot be included in your payroll costs, and your forgivable amount will scale in a proportion to the amount you spend on payroll up to the total loan amount. Okay, so 60% of this has to go towards payroll. We're going to get into it here in a second about what exactly is payroll. Pay requirements: you must maintain at least 75% of salary. This requirement changes, you know what I'm saying, if you make more than $100,000, so it kind of caps you off there. And then again, this is just pretty much going through saying, hey, you still have to keep your staff on board. Now, for a lot of folks who are probably on this phone call, if you're set up like me, you may not have staff. So, but you still can get the PPP loan, right? And there's some guidelines that's built into that whole piece for us. They've been changing a little bit. I think the last one I saw, it's almost like if we get a PPP loan, self-employed without employees, it's like granted that almost 85% of it's going to be forgiven when you get it. But again, those numbers are changing. We have to make sure that we stay on top of it. All right. Now, here's the deal. Similar to the EIDL, you are not just going to be able to say and send the SBA a text message and say, okay, hey, 24 weeks is up. I spent all the money, and I'm going to get my loan forgiven, and I spend it on payroll too. That's not how this works. You have to be able to track where every dollar has gone. So if you did not know this, you actually have to apply for forgiveness of the loan. So the loan could be forgiven, but again, it's not free money because it's a loan. Applying for loan forgiveness. So in the essence of this deal, it is a loan. You are trying to follow the guidelines to get it forgiven. And what does that look like? So hopefully this works here when I click here on my screen. Bear with me. Yeah, it showed up cool. This is the loan forgiveness application. Now, this is one version of it. It's changed since this rolled out, but let's just go through this together real quick. I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I want to show you. And this is not a short application. If you received EIDL money, you have to be able to disclose that because it's going to offset part of what you have eligible to be forgiven. So again, the government is not in the business of just giving out free money. Okay. It's pretty hefty, right? And it's giving you guidelines, but things that you need to be able to account for, right? So one, how much was your SBA loan? What's the lender? How much was your PPP, right? Did you get the EIDL advance amount? What's that application number? Hey, how often is your payroll? What's the period that it covered? And here it gets into your different line items, right? So your payroll costs, we'll get into that here in a second. They have a schedule for that. But business mortgage interest, business rent and lease payments, business utility payments, right? It is telling you, hey, you need to make sure you can document all of this, right? Trying to get your stuff forgiven. And again, this is an old application. They got to roll out with a new one to address the changes to 60-40. But again, this is detailed information, y'all. You have to apply for forgiveness. If your loan is not if the PPP that you received is not forgiven, then it turns into a loan, a true loan. So the deal is it's a true loan. Now you're trying to get it forgiven. If you don't follow the guidelines, then it's not going to be forgiven. So again, this is not free money. Okay. So moving right along here, y'all. Wait for that to get out the way. Cool. So moving right along. So record keeping and required documents for forgiveness. So the goal is to get this loan forgiven. That is what we want to do. That is the ultimate goal, but you have to follow the rules. Rules include, documents, get that one out the way there. Okay, cool. Documents verifying the number of full-time equivalent employees. So you have to show your employees. Now, again, if you're self-employed like me, we have kind of some different guidelines, which are really cool. Ours is a lot easier if we don't have, rank and file employees. But you need to be able to show payroll reports from your payroll provider, payroll tax filings, income payroll and unemployment insurance filings from your state. Check out D, documents verifying any retirement and health insurance contributions, and documents verifying your eligible interest, rent, and utility payments were active as of February 2020. Again, you can go and retroactive this. You can't, well, actually you can, but you cannot go and be like, okay, I'm gonna start a business today and get the PPP money. That's not how this thing works. Now, you notice I highlighted documents verifying any retirement and health insurance contributions. I watched this this particular guideline for several months. I called the SBA. I asked, hey, I'm reading something. I want to know if I'm reading this correctly. They said, well, yeah, Perry, you're reading it correctly. I said, okay. I watched it a little bit longer. I reached out to another colleague of mine. I said, hey, what is your firm doing with respect to this, a third-party administrator? And they said, well, Perry, what you're reading is correct. So check this out, Joe. Part of what's considered payroll is cash compensation and non-cash compensation. So if you can document and verify any retirement or health insurance contributions, those help make the loan forgivable. So let's just stop there right there, because I told you we were going to speak in layman's terms to just have conversations here. Companies who received millions of dollars of PPP dollars, those companies could actually, and I bet you they did, the majority of them, take these dollars and use them as employer contributions to their 401k plans, because that's considered non-cash payroll compensation. Let that sink in. These companies are funding their retirements with PPP dollars and getting their loans forgiven because of this line item that to the average person, they may be completely oblivious to. So with that being said, because of the CARES Act and the tax deadline being pushed from April 15th to July 15th, if you receive PPP dollars, you could actually make a contribution to your retirement plan for the previous year, 2019, and use that as the non-cash compensation payroll, because that falls under the payroll. Whoa. So an employer can make a contribution to their retirement plan and use it to qualify as a payroll expense. Are you kidding me right now? If I could see your faces right now, like when this finally sunk in and I confirmed it through different sources, I was this guy with this turtleneck right here, completely mind blown. I said, how in the world is this falling through the cracks? Well, it's not falling through the cracks with the large, big businesses. It's falling through the cracks with small businesses like you and I. This is something that we can take advantage of. We'll get to that here shortly. But mind blown. Are you kidding me? All right. So what are the main changes of the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act that just recently rolled out? Well, here's the three biggest changes. The 8-week period. So when this thing first rolled out, you had 8 weeks to spend down all of this money. Now you have 24 weeks, a lot easier to digest. So close to 6 months. Previously, you had to spend at least 75% of the funds on payroll. Now you only have to spend 60. But if you got PPP dollars before the Flexibility Act, you don't automatically qualify for this. You actually have to physically call your lender up and be like, yo, So the Flexibility Act just rolled out. Does that change the requirements on my money? And that lender has to approve you on it. So this is not a blanket, you know what I'm saying, piece. If you got monies prior to that, don't assume anything. Call and ask. Also, too, if your loan is not forgiven, so you didn't play by the rules, it went from you having a 2-year loan at 1% interest rate to having a 5-year loan at a 1% interest rate. Now, this right here, y'all, is where it's a lot of people are going to get totally destroyed. Now, I'm so happy that they moved it to a 5-year, but I have a client in New York who got $160,000. And when you think about it, you know, a 1% loan, that's a great interest rate, right? But y'all, you got to understand the math. A 2-year loan means it has to be paid off in 2 years. So when we ran the numbers for my client, a $160,000 loan at 1% payback in 2 years was a monthly loan payment of $6,700 a month, $7,000 a month. I don't know too many businesses that can digest that. So yeah, the 1%, woohoo, but it was 2 years. Thank goodness they now stretched it out to 5 years. But still, that again, that is not an interest only loan. That is principal and interest have to be paid off in 5 years. So again, if you don't follow the rules, you may be subject to not having your loan forgiven or a portion of your loan not forgiven. But here's the caveat here. So you have to also think critically. If your loan is not forgiven, that means you didn't follow the rules to how you're supposed to spend the money. Do you think that the SBA or the government will come back and say, so your loan wasn't forgiven. You have no documentation to say that you used this the way it's supposed to be used. Can you provide some documentation to show us how you did use it? Like, don't play around with this, y'all. Think about this. When you signed up for the loan, you gave the government your tax ID numbers, your business tax ID numbers, your social. They ran your credit. They looked at your business. You gave them your routing number and your account number. If you don't think they have the ability to track, you know what I'm saying, the paper trail on this, you are completely out of your mind. So again, we got to make sure you follow the rules. Not to scare you, just understand the rules to engagement. Because again, this could be powerful. Like I showed you in the earlier slide, you could actually use the PPP dollars to cover your retirement plan contributions for a previous year, which is absolutely mind blowing. So there's some opportunity again to increase your assets and to benefit from this thing, right? But you got to use the money the right way. So when I did my first presentation for my clients, this came up. So I decided to give you guys this bonus. So y'all just bear with me here. So other CARES Act provisions, penalty-free 401k distributions, deferred 401k loan payments, as well as increased 401k loans. So I'm gonna break these down so you understand these. I've had people call me and say, P, man, I know you deal with stocks and investments and stuff. Man, is it true that I could take my 401k out? And I'm like, Lord have mercy. No. Here's what the CARES Act said. You can take a penalty-free 401k, you know what I'm saying, distribution, which means if you have a retirement plan at the time, you know what I'm saying, when I covered this, you could take out 100K and there was no penalty. But y'all, please don't mix up this language. You have penalty and you have taxes. They are not the same thing. The penalty is simply the 10% early withdrawal penalty, you know what I'm saying, if you're under 59 and a half. So if you're under 59 and a half and you distribute and take out money out of your 401k, you owe a 10% penalty. They waived the 10% penalty. What they did not waive was the taxes that are owed. The government is not giving y'all no money for free, y'all. The government is not in the business of losing money, right? So it's penalty free, but you still owe taxes. Last time I looked at the provision, it worked this way. You had 3 years to pay those funds back. So you took out 100,000. You need to pay back, you know, $33,333 every year for the next 3 years. And 1 year add an extra dollar to it and pay back all those funds. If not, it is all reported as taxable income. What does that mean to you? That $100,000 is added to your taxable income. That means that you now owe federal and state taxes, depending on your state. So you could easily be looking at 40 cents on the dollar. So if you took out $100,000, you're probably going to be looking at a tax bill of anywhere between $30,000 and $40,000. If you didn't have the money now, what makes you think you're going to have the money then, right? So this is not, hey, the government loves us so much, you know what I'm saying, let me take my money out. All they waived was the penalty. They did not waive the taxes. So again, if you're going to be taking these dollars out, you need to be taking them out strategically. You need to be working with a financial professional who understands this legislation, understands retirement plans, not Joe Schmo, you know what I'm saying, who giving you advice at the gas station and eating Skittles. No, you need to talk to somebody who does this for a living, because a misstep on here could really put you in harm's way. But again, it's available. How you use the dollars and what your plan is around that could be beneficial. Next thing we have here, deferred 401k loan payments. So understand, y'all, there's a difference between a distribution and a loan. A distribution is taking money out and now you owe taxes. A loan, which most people don't realize, is that you can actually take out a loan on your 401k. I do this with our clients all the time who have solo 401ks with us. So the same way you can have a 401k at your job, you can have a 401k that you own outside of your job if you're self-employed. So we have a ton of clients who have solo 401ks. You can borrow from it, but something to be considered a loan, it has to have a principal and interest payment. What's kind of dope about these loans is that the principal and interest payment goes back into your 401k. So it doesn't report to the credit bureaus. You're actually became the banker yourself. So if you have a business, you know what I'm saying? So it's the bank of Perry. So literally I can have my retirement account, take out a loan, not report to the credit bureaus and affecting my debt to income ratio, and the principal interest payment goes back into my account, which is really sweet. Well, what they did with the CARES Act is they said, hey, if you take out a 401k loan where there is a principal interest payment, those payments are deferred until 2021. So literally you could take the money out, not have a payment on those dollars, and be able to use those funds how you need to, you know, if you will, right? But again, you got to make sure that you're using the funds strategically and not just using it to go buy silly stuff. Like this is not the time to go use your 401k dollars to go buy a Louis Vuitton bag, you know what I'm saying, or some Gucci loafers or something crazy like that. Or so this is if you're going to be using these, because understand this is a loan. And how I look at loans make sense if you're making more money than what the interest, if you're making more interest on the money than what the interest is on the loan. We call that arbitrage. You borrow money at 2%, but you turn around and make 10% on the money, you still net 8. That could be a good move. So again, you have to be strategic with this, but the loan payments are deferred. What they also did with that legislation is they increased the max loan that you can take out from 50,000 up to 100,000. So yes, you do have access to those dollars. Again, I urge you, do not go about this on your own. Work with a professional who understands this and can give you real guidance on it. Because again, you still owe principal and interest on this loan. And if you don't pay, this is not, oh, well, it's a loan to myself, I'm not going to pay it. No, that's not going to work. Then what happens is that the IRS then reports that as taxable income, and now you owe taxes on the money. And now on that $100,000, we're back in that 30, 40 cents on the dollar scenario. Okay. So, but this is another provision in there, which again, being used the right way could be a game changer for many of folk. Okay. So conclusion, y'all, this CARES Act, the EIDL, the PPP, you know what I'm saying, all these other different features, if real, the 401ks or whatnot, has provided us, the small business owner, with resources we have never seen before. In my 20 years of being in financial services, even when you think about, the mortgage and stock crisis of 2007 to 2009, I've never seen these types of dollars be made that readily available. And that's what should cause concern. These dollars are literally, you can get $100,000 or $50,000 loan on your phone and never speak to anybody, right? They made these dollars really easy to get. So they made it available, but you must follow the rules. If you follow the rules, you can create a phenomenal win-win financial situation for you and your family and look at creating legacy, but you got to be strategic and you got to follow the rules. Not following the rules can lead to absolute disaster. So next steps. Number one, y'all, you need to identify a professional to work with. So whether you want to work with us over at Diamond Equity Advisors or whoever, please do not go about this on your own. Please do not, because one misstep, one not tracking a receipt, one not, having the right software to track how the money is being spent, one misstep puts you in harm's way. One emotional decision to say, oh, I'm going to take this money and pay off this student loan debt is going to hurt you. You have to work with somebody who understands this stuff, or you run the risk of accidentally killing your business. And what do we mean by accidentally killing your business? Here are the symptoms. We work with businesses across the country, and here are the symptoms that you're accidentally killing your business. One, you owe taxes because you spent all the business income. Two, you use business funds to pay for personal expenses. Three, you struggle with how to pay yourself separately from the business. Four, you wonder why you have no cash profits to show for all your hard work. Your tax return said you had $20,000 in profit, but you don't have $20,000 in the bank. And what we just added now to this list, you're mismanaging government SBA loans in dollars. Here's the deal, y'all. There's a stat that 83% of businesses fail. And it's a true stat. And one of the reasons businesses fail is because they don't have the right systems in place. We believe that you should have three systems in place. One system's for your operation, one system's for your marketing, and one system for your finances. And that's what we specialize in. And how we've been able to help our clients is using the system that we already created, that they're already using, and implemented how to use these government funds as far as PPP and the EIDL loan and other things of that nature. Okay. So if these were already just systems, and just by a show of hands, I can't see you guys right now because I don't have all the screens up. If you had 1 out of 4 of these systems, well, let me put it this way. I've worked with hundreds of businesses and I've yet to meet one, not one, that didn't have at least one, if not all 4 of these issues with their businesses. And you'll hear me say this a lot. Making more money doesn't fix a broken financial system. And getting an SBA loan or a PPP loan is not going to fix a broken financial system. You have to have the right system so that these dollars are managed the right way. So moving along, here's the option here for you. It's not your only option, but I'll offer it to you. You can schedule a consultation with our team at Diamond Equity Advisors, learn about our past program. That's our Profit Accelerator Small Business Program. Now more than ever, you have to have a system. Here's a quote from John Maxwell that I absolutely love. He says, systems allow ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results predictably. So right now, if you don't have a financial system, if you don't have a trusted advisor who understands all the different moving parts of this thing, you got to get somebody on your team. Our consultations are completely free. So if you want to connect with us, I'll give you the information to get that done. But more than ever, you got to have a system. Our system is an 8-step system where we literally go from vision, where you want to take your business to provide for your personal livelihood and lifestyle for your family, assessing the business, establishing the right accounts. This is where we establish the right accounts to be able to manage the SBA dollars, analyzing, where you're spending your money, creating that business budget, positioning you for financing, paying off debt, understanding where to pay stuff off. I had a conversation with a client today, mind blown. She's like, oh my gosh, Perry. That's amazing how we're going to actually take some of her money, pay off this debt, and then use the money saved from that debt then to pay off the other debt so she can stay liquid. Mind blown. Making sure that we're positioned to pay taxes and then ultimately growth. So our 8-step proven system, our clients have about a 92% success rate when they come through our program as far as having a system that increases revenue and profitability. And in this day and age now, we now have, this is a perfect fit for managing these funds as far as the EIDL as well as the PPP. So take a screenshot of this, y'all. This is how you can get on our calendar. We have 20 spots available. This is not a hardcore, sales tactic, nothing on those lines. This is what it is. We're a small company, so we can't work with hundreds of people. We don't want to work with thousands and hundreds of people. We're going to work with a handful of people and help them navigate this space so that when they come on the outside of this thing, they are positioned the right way. They were able to see their business in 3D. And what we mean by 3D is they're able to make data-driven decisions. So every dollar, kind of something we say at Diamond Equity Advisors, let no dollar go unemployed. Let no dollar go unemployed. So through our system, every dollar will have a purpose, every dollar will have a place, every dollar will have a job. We can't work with, because we're a boutique firm, we can't work with hundreds of folks. So we have 20 spots available. I highly recommend you take advantage of the strategy call, which is completely free. And if it's a good fit, we can go through, what that looks like. Feel free to follow us at perryjeffries.com. We have some free resources on there. I'm real big on free resources, right? So we have, our podcast, Profitology with Perry podcast on there. We have a bunch of videos on there. Please get all that information, because that's how we close this gap on, business financial literacy, is understanding the language. So please take advantage of that. And if you have any questions specifically for us, you can email us at info@Diamond Equity Advisors, and somebody on my team will get us those emails and follow up with you. So take a quick screenshot of this. You can go there and get on our calendar. I would be surprised if those 20 spots weren't filled up pretty quickly. I think we have maybe about 15 people left on the call. I'd be highly surprised if those spots weren't filled up, because this is important. Okay, moving right along. This is now where we open up the floor for questions. What I'm going to do is jump into the chat here and see if there's some questions I can answer from here. And then we'll open it up as well, where individuals can actually ask questions. So this is the Q&A time, y'all. So bear with me here 1 second. Faction in the right place. I can hear you. I can hear you. Thank you. Give us examples of how a home-based business could use the idle funds. Cool. So with a home-based business, so kind of similar how we are. I work from home for the most part. With these funds, these are working capital funds. So guess what? Working capital, fixed expenses for the business. Remember, it says payroll, so you got to be able to pay yourself. So, there's a lot of different things you can use the funds for. If you have, some other business loans, it's available for that. So is business working capital. So things that you would know. So kind of think about it like this. If your business was shut down completely by the pandemic, what were the bills that you had to pay? And you're like, man, how do I pay those bills? Those are typically what's going to be eligible for the EIDL, if you think about it, because it says in the legislation, in the writing, that if you were impacted by the pandemic, and these, your operating expenses, and for those who don't know this, our PASS program actually has a bucket for operating expenses, which comes out of one of account. Any of those funds that are any of those expenses that are coming out of operating expense are more than likely eligible to be used, are eligible for the EIDL to be applied to it, if that makes sense. Okay, so it comes down to really understanding your operating expenses. And again, that comes down to separating your business from your personal expenses. Again, this is business working capital. So you can't put on here, hey, I like to go to the Japanese steakhouse, and say that that's part of, no, because keep in mind, this is still a loan. So what you almost want to think about is, okay, what can I do to not use this money, and make sure that when you use this money, you're using it strategically, and you're not just kind of, I got money, I'm going to pay everything off, because you're going to find yourself in a worse situation before. So again, you got to have some type of financial system in place, which tells you where to put the money, because if it's just left to emotion, you're going to spend the money the wrong way. It would depend on the business tax structure. If it's an S Corp and the owner is on payroll, that would count. Thank you, Lakeisha. That's one of our favorite accountants, hometown friend of mine. She went to high school together. Love you to death. Best tools and methods to keep records of money spent. Okay, cool. So there's a bunch of calculators floating out there. Hit us up at info@Diamond Equity Advisors. We've pirated some calculators that we found online, which are pretty cool, but it comes down to tracking. So if you're a business owner, you have to have some means of tracking, right? So you have to have some type of QuickBooks or some along those lines to track your expenditures. What we use through our PASS program is all of our business expenses come through one account. So what we do for our clients is we establish another account for the PPP dollars or the EIDL dollars, so that we always have a paper trail where those dollars go, and they never get commingled with everything else. Because if all of those dollars are grouped together and you're just spending them, kind of just like, I see it, I spend it. I see it, I spend it. We want to separate those dollars out. And that way, when we use those dollars, we have just different ways of checking. We can use bank statements, we can use software, we can use calculators, all of those different things. Somebody said, wow, I don't know what the wow was for, but I hope that was good. I had this discussion a dozen times with clients. Taxes will still apply. Oh my God, you're probably talking about the 401k deal. Let's see here. We are using 100% of the PPP loan on our employees' wages and salaries. Can employees receive bonus and wage increase under this loan and still be forgiven? So, Mary, and I'll be totally transparent with you, I'm not sure on that one. Let's get on the horn and see if we can kind of find that out together. We can dive through the loan package and some of those provisions to see. I don't have a exact answer for you on that one, but that's definitely worth a phone call. So if I'm understanding you correctly, hey, I'm using all this money the right way, paying the folks, can I pay them a bonus? Well, keep this in mind. You can also make a contribution to their retirement plans, right? Because that's going to fall into the payroll piece too. So as an employer, you could potentially make a profit sharing contribution to those employees, and that's going to definitely fall into the whole forgiveness piece. And now, as far as giving them cash compensation, I'm not 100% sure on that, but for sure you could turn around, because I talked to a very large company, I won't mention it here, that received hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they use those dollars to put into all the staff's 401k plans. So that may be an option for you. Does the EIDL have a time period that you need to spend the funds within? No. Nope. So this is working capital. The deal is you're just on the hook for the next 30 years. So again, if you're going to spend the money, or if you're not going to spend the money, that's why you got to be crystal clear on where you're going to put those dollars and having some type of strategy on how you're going to spend those dollars. Because maybe you don't need all of it. You know, maybe you want to give some of the money back, or, you know what I'm saying, or, you know what I'm saying, pay some of the loan down. You know, you have those options because it's not a prepayment penalty on it. But keep this in mind, over 30 years, you got to look at what that looks like. So if you got $100,000 over 30 years at 3.75%, the payment is lovely, but how much would you have paid over the next 30 years? So again, you want to use these dollars wisely. And my caution, my concern, and that I want to make sure I instill and say, a lot can happen in 30 years. Shoot, we saw what happened in 60, 90 days, right? So again, this isn't just a free fall to be like, oh, I got money, let me go spend it. You better be super strategic and have a plan for those dollars. But no, the idle is not, oh, you got to spend the money, because this is working capital. So the same way you would take out a loan, kind of like a line of credit. So instead of it being a line of credit, it's just a hard loan. The same way we use those dollars, like, okay, I need this for this expense. Okay, I need this for equipment. Okay, I need this for, rent. Right. So that's how those dollars are going to be used, but it's not a time frame period on it. Let's see here, G. Reese. We've been hearing how there's another round of PPP. Our organization has already been awarded PPP funds. Are we able to apply for additional funds? My understanding is this: the other round is not for people who already got it. It is for folks who have not gotten it. Now, that's what we read here recently. Don't know if that's going to be absolute fact, because again, this thing is changing all the time. But our understanding is that if you got one round of PPP, you can't go back and get another round of PPP. You're better off looking at the EIDL and seeing if you can get positioned with that, because that's open wide up, and they are aggressively funding companies right now. Erica, how would you utilize 60% for payroll if you only have 1099 contractors? So here's the deal. The understanding we have with the PPP, Erica, because I ran into this with my bank when I was going through the process. I said, well, my contractors are all 1099. They said, you can't use PPP dollars for that. I said, well, why? Because those contractors, because they're 1099, are actually their own businesses. I said, oh. They said, now, if you get paid 1099, we can use your 1099s and your tax returns to determine how much you can get. But you can't use those funds to pay 1099. I said, interesting, because think about it like this. You need to tell your staff who's 1099 contractors that they need to go apply for it, because as 1099 contractors, they may be your contractors, but they are business owners. They're self-employed. That's the reason they're 1099. So that's how that piece works. So they need to go apply for this EIDL or PPP on their own, because they may actually be able to get funding on that. But you can't get funding for that. You're kind of in the same situation that I'm in, where it's like, okay, I can get PPP, but it's based upon my tax returns and things of that nature. Great question. For the PPP, Janelle here, for the PPP, what should I spend it on if I'm self-employed? So get with me, Janelle, on that one, because there's a different criteria for self-employed folks, right? Because they're basing the PPP on our profit of our business. And based on that profit of the business, they know we're receiving that profit more than likely as income. So that's why they're, when I read some legislation here recently, it said, 85% of our pieces are already going to be forgiven because they know that's our income because we don't have any, I'm saying, that profit. That's why they're using our tax return. And I think Lakeisha, is it line 37, I think, on the tax return, something that says, hey, here's the company's net profit. They're using that number and then calculating. So they know that's our income. So you can use that to pay yourself. That's why it's when you get those funds, it's almost like 85, I think it's 80 or 85%. I got to check that. It's automatically forgiven. And then you spend the rest on what you would spend it on. You know what I'm saying? So if you're home based, shoot, you should be using, part of your mortgage or your rent as a business expense, your Wi-Fi, everything else that's in there. So you would use that for your other business expenses, even if you're self-employed. So I hope that helps you out, but definitely schedule a call with us. We can walk you through that. Oh gosh, we got more questions. My bad. Can you use the EIDL and PPP to pay off your balance with the IRS? So PPP, that's not in there. It's not listed as, I'm saying, that's payroll for employees. That's not debt consolidation or pay off debts that you owe. Okay. The EIDL is working capital. So working capital for the business, we were talking about business tax returns. You know what? There's nothing I've read that you cannot use it for that. But again, that's why we kind of need to dive into it a little bit more. But with the PPP, that is payroll protection. That is not, hey, pay off debts that you owe to the IRS. What about receiving unemployment while going through the loan process? So this is our understanding as of today. If you're receiving unemployment, you will not get the PPP. We read that here recently, and it's a really good question. So the PPP is for payroll protection. So this is, hey, this is how you keep your people employed. Well, and keep money in their pocket to help the economy, because people who don't have money don't spend. Well, if you're receiving unemployment, you're already being paid by the PPP. You know what I'm saying? So you already have that income coming in because that's what that is for. So what we read here recently is that you can't have both. Now, that doesn't mean anything about the EIDL. So you may want to look at the EIDL versus the PPP. But our understanding last time we looked at it was that you can't do both. Let's see. Our business has received other grants to cover employees' wages and salaries. Our PPP authorization date is 6/9. Okay, so earlier this month. I'm with you. Okay. Concern is overlapping grants and loans. Just confirming that the PPP new guidelines for using the funds. Yes. So the guidelines for using, so via the Flexibility Act, which just rolled out, yes, it's 24 weeks. But what you want to do is make sure you reach out to the lender who gave you the PPP and make sure that that window, I don't know exactly when the Flexibility Act rolled out, but if it rolled out after you received your funds, you may still be in that 8-week time frame. So you just want to just call the lender, leave no question unanswered. This is the time to over ask questions. Please don't assume anything during this time because this thing is changing all the time. Call the lender up and be like, hey, am I part of, I'm saying, is my loan under the Flexibility Act where I have 24 weeks? Just to clarify, EIDL may be able to pay off balance with the IRS. Yes, it's a may. So I was receiving unemployment and then recently got approved for the PPP. Okay, so here's the deal. Are you still, and again, this is why we kind of need to schedule some private calls here, y'all, because we can kind of dive into this. Are you still receiving the unemployment while receiving the PPP? Because that may be an issue. That may be a major issue, right? So Candace, I would definitely schedule a consultation so we can walk through that and kind of check the dates and all of that good stuff. Cool. All right, y'all. I think we answered all of those. Oh, got a new question. Hold on 1 second here. So I was receiving unemployment and recently got approved for the PPP. Will do. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. Cool. All right, y'all. So if aren't any other questions, we will close out the evening. Do this for us as just if this was valuable, what we would highly appreciate is shout us out on social media, y'all. So, our goal is to be relevant. And for us to be relevant, we need to make sure, well, let me take a step back. Here's the deal. You have relevant and you have success. Success is measured by what you accomplish individually. Relevance is measured by how many people you help become successful. So shout us out on social media if this was valuable to us. Show us some love and be like, hey, we was on the webinar, Perry Jeffries, discussing the PPP. because we're going to have this recorded. And for individuals who raise their hand like, man, I missed it, we'll be happy to send a recording to them. And again, whether they become our personal clients or not, we just want to share this information because we don't want to see so many of us small entrepreneurs, you know what I'm saying? It's a very close-knit group, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Small entrepreneurs, because nobody understands the grind that we go through. And I go through the same grind that y'all go through. So we're here to help. And we want to help as many people as possible. So even if they're not working with us personally as clients, we still want to make sure they get this information, because this is the information that's not being shared. Because everybody, as far as like, you know, saying these large companies and whatnot, like, hey, I can't advise. Here's the guidelines, and they're saying, hey, go read it. But it's written in legalese and financial leagues versus layman terms, where, you know, folks like us, small business owners who are grinding and busting our butts, can make good decisions with it. So please shout us out on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever the case may be. That's how if this was valuable to you, that's how you say thank you to us, because the team, we worked hard to put this thing together here for you in a short amount of time. And then, yeah, definitely, if we need to connect, let's get on the calendar, and we'll give you some guidance. See if I have, before I bounce real quick. Good info. Salute. Thank you, my friend. Always great info, great information. Thank you. Very informational. Can you make a user-friendly chart with do's and don'ts? That would be nice. Yeah, we have to charge you extra for that, Bridget. But love you guys. And, you know, definitely, you know what I'm saying, spread the word, y'all. All right, y'all. I'll make sure I didn't leave anybody with a question. Great Zoom. Very welcome. All right, y'all. Be good out there. Be safe out there. Don't go about this on your own. Invest in good financial counsel. You don't want to have a misstep, and this is an opportunity for us to really position ourselves well with this money that's available. All right, y'all. Peace. Good night.